Right then, time to ask a Nottingham Forest fan all about Nuno, and Adam is in the hot seat. Adam, are you ready to rock and roll?
I mean, as ever. Yeah, thank you.
I have a lot of questions for you. I asked the subscribers, have you got any questions? I'm doing a video with a Nottingham Forest fan, and we've got quite a bit. So there's a lot of interest in either Nuno or you. I'm not sure which one it is, but one of you are really popular. Okay.
Cool. Sounds.
Might not be Nuno, could be you. But let's kick it off with this one from Dime, who says, what was the feeling around Nuno before that great last season they had?
So I think when he first got rumoured to be coming in to replace Steve Cooper, it was quite underwhelming. Not many people really wanted Nuno, but I think a lot of people looked at that spell he had at Spurs and thought, I'm not sure about that. And then going to Saudi Arabia doesn't really kind of give you the impression that he's in football anymore for football. So that was an interesting take. So when he came in, I think everyone was firmly against it, or at least on the fence, at say the least. So I knew had a difficult situation to come in. So I think that was the general feeling. He didn't really come in and be like, "Oh, I need the fans on side." He kind of just tried to get on with it rather than trying to appeal to the masses, because I think he knew that the person he was replacing was quite a big kind of gap to fill. So I think underwhelming would probably be the overall feeling.
How did you get on that first season? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Did you stay up
Yeah.
just and points deductions came into it and
Oh,
stuff
it
as
was
well?
he dealt with a lot of negativity. So like the first game we played Bournemouth and Willy Bolly got sent off for a second yellow card for winning the ball. So yeah, that kind of
That
helped him
pesky
actually.
rule in football these
That,
days.
that actually probably helped Nuno, because obviously then the crowd kind of got behind the team and against the referee rather than against the manager, and we lost 3-2 with 10 men to Bournemouth in the dying embers of they're just our bogey side anyway, Bournemouth, so it didn't really matter anyway. And then going to beat Newcastle away on Boxing Day and Chris Wood turning into prime Ronaldo and scoring a hat-trick there helped, and then beating Man United is always good, isn't it, for anyone? So I think that kind of got people on board straight away. But then, yeah, points deduction, the AFCON happened, the famous tweet at Everton happened. So he had a lot to deal with, really. So he did well in the circumstances, but luckily, like them bottom three sides were absolutely woeful as well.
Right, moving on to the next question. We've got one from Stanley, who says, did you go into every game with a small hope that you may get something regardless of the team under Nuno? Or did you have to write off some of the games like we do as West Ham fans?
I think last season it was you felt like you could get something because we were defensively sound. The problem was if we went a goal behind, we didn't have much of a fight to come back. I think we only won 5 points or so from losing positions last season, and that was a major frailty for us. That if we went a goal down, we pretty much wrote it off. We had to score the first goal, and we did a lot last season, and that's why we had such a successful season in some capacity. But we bottled it towards the end because teams kept giving us the ball and we didn't know what to do with it, and that was the big major issue. So yeah, you could say we'd go in knowing that we could at least get a point because we were defensively sound, but it just depends whether teams were happy to let us play on the counter attack or not.
Shep says, how proactive is he in games in regards to his tactics?
So he's quite rigid in terms of the 4-2-3-1, and then once we were going in front in games, we'd bring on Morato and go to a 3 or a 5 at the back and kind of shore things up. We nicknamed Morato the doorman because at one point he was coming in on nearly every game for half an hour or so, and we wouldn't concede. I think it took him like 10 games to concede a goal, which is still pretty impressive to say you're coming on as a substitute, but the game management was always really good. But I would say when we're chasing games, it was difficult for Nuno because you had to then be more open, be more adventurous, and he completely struggled with that, and he didn't trust his depth whatsoever.
I was going to say, is that a tactical thing or a squad thing? I appreciate if people look at Nottingham Forest squad today, they're like, what's the issue? But that was largely done over the summer. I mean, I think back to last season, you had Awoni as a sub striker, you had Yorta Silva, who I think a lot of people had high hopes for, because we were linked to him as well before you signed him, and I think a lot of people would have liked him at West Ham. But I think the bench was perhaps not quite as good as the first 11 at Forest. So was it a personnel thing, a tactical thing, or both?
I think a bit of both. I don't think personnel he didn't trust. For some reason, he didn't trust Ramon Sosa too much, and I thought he looked all right in glimpses. Jota Silva was very hot and cold. Like, depending, it was you could tell what type of game Jota Silva was going to have within the first 10 seconds of him being on the pitch. So if he threw himself down to the floor, you knew you were going to get absolutely nothing. If he was going to run at the fullback within the first second, you go, well, he's actually on it today. So that was a mix with them guys. But then, I think just we didn't have enough players to change it up, really, or players enough that he trusted to change it up. So that was a difficult one. So I guess his hands were slightly tied behind his back, but also he didn't give anyone a chance either.
No. Right, Chris says, could he adapt when the opposition dropped deep? This seemed to stuff Moyes up when he couldn't counter on them.
Yeah, this is the same issue. I mean, against Brentford, first game of this season, before we got trounced by you, where everyone has actually said that Nuno might have thrown that game a little bit. But yeah, if teams give us the ball, we really struggled. Brentford this season was a bit different, and we kind of thought, oh, we're on for different football with Nuno. Maybe that interview was a bit like misdirection or something that he gave to Sky. But yeah, and then last towards the end of last season, that's what Brentford, Leicester, Everton did, and we got punished by each of them by we couldn't dominate the game. We just didn't have the know-how for some reason.
See, does that feel, we've spoken about the lack of ability to change in game is down to tactics and personnel. Is what we're discussing now, is that more down to tactics?
Possibly. I just think because he had players that last season that could definitely break down teams. Ibrahim Sangare can pick players out from deep. Elliot Anderson, we've seen for England and for Forest, that he can dictate games as well. And you've got wingers like last season we had Elanga and Hudson-Odoi who could run in behind, but for some strange reason it just didn't seem to happen. It just that side of the football wasn't there. It was always, we need to be defensively sound, we'll sit in and we'll counter, and that works against majority of teams because majority of the league like to play out through the back. They like to keep the ball. They like to make about 600 passes between themselves, which I find can be a little bit boring, but that's the modern game nowadays. It's keeping the ball, it's moving the teams from left to right and creating and waiting for an opportunity, I guess. How I crave for 2000s or 90s football sometimes.
Right, from Chris's question to Harry's question, he says, I'd like to know more about the dynamic of leaving Forest, please. I really like Nuno, so don't want him to fall out and end up leaving like he did Bear. Was it a case of a clash with Marinakis or more to it? How likely is it to repeat?
So basically, Nuno came out and did an interview for Sky before Brentford, and he said he was unhappy with the preparation of pre-season. He needed more time he wanted players to come in sooner so he could create the bond. He always used to go on about the bond, especially for pre-season, of getting everyone together and getting that unity and everything, which I think is a massive part of football. Of course it is. The problem was he did that interview and we had that CAS hearing over us with Crystal Palace, so we didn't know what competition we was playing in. So you're talking about spending maybe 100 million compared to 200 million pound, and what players you can go after, what you're going to sell to that player. Because within the CAS hearing, we signed 4 players in Douglas Luiz, Amari Hutchinson, James McAtee, and one other, and I can't quite remember who.
Calamendo.
Would have been Calimawendo, and spent like nearly 200 million at the end of the window by the end of it. So it just made no sense for him to say that. So, and it wasn't a fallout with Marinakis. I think it was a fallout with Edu. It seemed like they just got off on completely the wrong foot. The story has now come out that Nuno wanted Adama Traore and felt like not getting him was a sign of distrust from the board and Edu. But and it just sounded like Nuno wanted players that were happy to sit on the bench and happy to kind of be a bit part. And I find that a bit baffling because you're like, well, Surely you want players that are better competition, because that was our downfall last season. We had players that were happy to sit on the bench. You don't want that. So it depends. I mean, when we spoke earlier, Gio, about your recruitment this season and Sullivan getting Callum Wilson because he scores past West Ham all the time, I don't know. So it really depends. I think Nuno, I think this happened at Wolves with Nuno, where he didn't get his way and he threw his toys out the pram. So, I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't happen again. That's football. People disagree on stuff all the time, and this is probably the problem with modern day football, that managers aren't managers; they are head coaches now. You've got other people that are doing all the recruitment, because managers are. It's just like a revolving door, isn't it?
Yeah. Sorry, Harry. I know you were looking for a little bit of reassurance there. I don't think you're getting it. Roger said, were there any grumblings at Forest about the style of football under Nuno? From what I saw last season, it looked fast counter-attacking football, which clearly worked.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say there was any grumblings because we were winning. And I put this recently on Twitter because there's been a huge divide now between what we had with Nuno and what we're getting now with Ange, where we've not won a game of football, but we're actually probably playing a much more attractive brand of football. And I wrote on Twitter that you are conditioned to a certain style of football because you're driven by results. Look at what West Ham were doing under David Moyes. There were people that were complaining, but you won a European trophy playing the way he played. So what do you want? Do you want results, or do you want to play attractive brand of football and lose like Tottenham were doing under Ange last season, but they won a trophy in the end of it? So it kind of goes both ways, I guess. But I enjoyed it for the full part because we were winning football matches and we was doing well. So I guess you can say no, but I think when you start to break it down and you're not breaking teams down where they're going to give you the ball, then there is going to be a clear grumbling because you haven't got another way of playing. Nuno wasn't adapting his style, and he should have. He had the tools to do it. And I just don't get that about football managers sometimes as a football fan. It may be easier said than done, I guess, because surely you would get like 20 amazing football managers in the Premier League and they'd all be smashing it sort of thing. It would be a really, really tough league sometimes, but that's just not the way, because you look at last season with like Russell Martin when he was at Southampton to start with, wouldn't change from playing that possession style of football, and it cost him his job. And now at Rangers, he's only just managed to win a game in a team that's in a league that's dominated by literally two teams. So it's just baffling really with how it is. But yeah, overall there was no grumbles apart from one team's just sat back. That's all really.
Yeah, I think from a neutral's perspective, I think there was maybe a lack of grumbles because you were winning. And had you stopped winning for, say, the last, fifth of the season, that's when you maybe started struggling and dropping points. I do wonder if you started doing that around Christmas time, if by the last fifth of the season those grumbling started. Does that make sense? I think when the manager playing football that perhaps is not that desirable as winning, I think it's justified. And at the end of the day, winning football matches is fun.
Yeah,
it is positive. It is fun, and you might not like the style of play, but it's sort of like, well, it's working, so happy days. But I think the minute the results stop, I think that's when, and I think the issue around the style of play can come up really quickly, because it's like, well, it's not justified anymore. And I think I was possibly in that camp myself with David Moyes when the results were there. It was like, well, it's working, so happy days. But then when it stopped working, it was a bit, this isn't very enjoyable. I think what I will say about Ange, I think your first half against Real Betis was some of the best football I've seen anyone play for 45 minutes this season. Anyone. I thought you were fantastic away to Real Betis for that 45. Not so sure about the subs you made, and I know Douglas Luiz was a fitness thing, but I think that completely changed the game, taking him off.
Did.
But the first 45, you were very good.
Yeah.
Go on.
But what I was going to add is the fact that you've got Anthony Elanga on the counter attack is a massive, massive asset to have, because he gets from 0 to his top speed in very, very quick. His acceleration is ridiculous. So I think losing that in the summer was quite big for us and Nuno's style. But the problem was like if Anthony Elanga was having a bad game, it was a bit difficult to get things going. But I think like with West Ham, the fact that Jarrod Bowen's not lightning, but he's quick and he's technical. But you got Somerville on the other side who's probably a bit more quicker across the ground there in a shorter distance, then you've got the tools to play that counter attack and be like almost like a Red Arrows, especially when you got Lucas Paquetos who can pick you can pick things apart, I guess.
Will says, or Will asks rather, is he likely to be the kind of manager that will kick a player up the arse if he sees a lack of commitment or effort on the pitch? Simply as I think that's what's needed for a number of the players currently.
That's quite difficult to know, because I think he's more of a arm round the shoulder kind of manager. That's what the vibe we got from him. I think he's definitely willing to take a player out of contention to give him a kick up the backside. He did that with Valanga actually in the middle of the first half of the season. He took him out for a couple of games. He brought him on against Aston Villa and he scored and got an assist, I think, for a goal that was disallowed, and that just kicked Valanga on from that moment. And he was like undroppable after that. He was very, very good. So he's definitely got that in him. It's just whether he's got players to come in to replace the player he wants to give a kick up the backside too, I guess.
There's definitely another question regarding player management coming up, but not just yet. Actually, it is right now. That's happy. It's from me. I wrote this one. I was hoping someone would have wrote a question about James Ward-Prowse, but they didn't, so I've had to add it in myself. So this one's from Hammer's Chat. Says, did anything happen with Ward-Prowse at Nottingham Forest, or was it purely he was brought in for cover and then just not required anymore once those players were back fitness?
Yeah, I think that was it. I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. Although I know he got dropped. He got dropped for the first West Ham game, didn't he?
Yeah, well, that's why I'm asking, because it felt quite a bold decision. Now, taking him out the starting 11, good. I think most West Ham fans wanted to see that, but to not even have him on the bench felt like, wow, that was a big call. It was a statement. I think it was a statement by Nuno, and I'm just wondering if there was something between him and Ward-Prowse at Nottingham Forest, and it's carried on over to West Ham.
As far as I know, nothing's been said, nothing's been reported that there was a fallout or anything. And I thought like Ward-Prowse would kind of be a Nuno wet dream in a sense because of his set pieces. Like last season, we relied so much on being good at set pieces in both boxes. I just thought Ward-Prowse is like, well, yeah, like, he is what he is, isn't he? Everyone says like he's just he's an average centre midfielder, but with world-class set pieces. So it kind of like bumps him up a tiny little bit, I guess. So yeah, it's a strange one. But as far as I know, there was never any reports of a falling out as such.
I think
and Ward-Prowse was there to just as cover really, which is a shame because I do think he's a good player. To be fair, in this league, he's experienced.
Yeah, I don't think his set pieces are as good as what they used to be anymore. Well, he's been with us for a couple of seasons now. He's still not scored a free kick. He came needing one to equal David Beckham's Premier League record, and he's still not got it. We all thought when he went to you, thought, here he goes, he's going to whack with him for Nottingham Forest. So when he equals the record, it'll be Southampton and Nottingham Forest, and us mugs who paid 30 million for him won't even be anywhere near it on the record board. Our team won't be there. Just unrecognisable. There was other players as well. Forgive me, please, if I'm wrong, please do say. But I know when Nuno came in, you obviously had quite a big squad. I know we spoke about lack of squad depth, but obviously you got promoted. You had to bring in, you had about 5 players or something like that. So you had to spend a lot of money and you brought in a lot of players. But I do feel like sometimes I've seen like a transfer story in the last 6 months, and it'll be like Emmanuel Dennis has left Nottingham Forest. I'm like, wait, what? He's still there? Like Omar Richards as well. He's someone I thought was a good signing when you signed him, but then I seen him leaving. I'm like, hang on a minute, he was still. I just assumed he'd left like 12 months ago or something. So was there other players that just didn't like, and you never saw the light of day at Nottingham Forest?
Not that I can recall really. They're all like in the bomb squad, if you want to call it that, before he came. So no, not really. I mean, Taiwo didn't get as many minutes as maybe some people would have liked, but the problem with Taiwo is he couldn't keep himself fit, and Chris Wood was everything he touched went in the goal. So I guess I can't really say. I don't think there was anyone in particular that he weren't including or anything that wasn't already not included.
Moving on to Charlie. Don't worry, there's no more questions from me. That was all. Charlie's question is, how much do you think Nuno inflicted to get Forest 7th?
I mean, I thought he did a brilliant job. The inclusion or the transfer of Nikola Milenkovic transported us, or I don't even know what I'm trying to say here, Jim. Where's it getting? Yeah, transformed us like in both boxes. I just thought he was so solid. I thought his organisation and the team camaraderie was always really, really good. Like everyone gave 100% every game. You wouldn't say there was a player that was slacking off or not giving their all for the team. I mean, there's a big clip. There's a clip against Brighton where I think we're like 3 or 4-0 up, and they're on the counter attack, and you just see like the army come back into shape and get back in, like 7 or 8 of them sprinting back after we've been on the attack or whatever, or a corner or whatever. So he had a major factor, I think, in us finishing 7th. It was a massive overachievement, regardless that we were in the top 4 for 12 weeks of the season or whatever it was. That was a bit of pill to swallow kind of thing, that we didn't make it. But when you look at it from an outsider's point of view, you just go, well, Forest has still had a really good season. Like, let's take context out of it. It was a really, really good season, and he was a massive part to play, and we overachieved. And I just kind of thought that maybe he would adapt then the style, especially if he could get better players in and more depth. And then lo and behold, all the fallout happens. Everyone thinks it's happened since the Leicester game, but that was always reported that wasn't anything to do with Nuno. It was more Marinakis trying to see if Tyler was all right, because then he ended up having like I don't know, he like split his intestines or something.
Yeah.
It was a real bad injury. It was horrible actually at the time. Like, it really collided with the post. It like thumped around the ground when he did it.
I was going to say something now, but I forgot what it was. You were talking about something, and it triggered something. I'll just move on to the next question. Hopefully it comes back to me. Freddie said, which players would Nuno like and can improve going forward in regards to West Ham? Testing your West Ham knowledge here, Freddie, is.
Yeah. I think definitely if like Mavropanos and Kilman are maybe a little bit more defensively sound, because I know you said about set pieces you were a bit all over the shop. Lo and behold, you had a stellar game against ourselves, and we got nowhere near you really in that respect. So it will make you definitely more organised, and you could probably see some improvements to defenders. I think Wan-Bissaka and Juve at fullbacks are going to be huge for him. I think he will really enjoy playing with them guys. Wan-Bissaka kind of is a bit like Olaina in terms of like interceptions and 1v1 defending. He's very, very good, and I think he's actually probably a little bit better than Olaina going forward. So that'll be a big asset. Central midfield, I think he needs to sort out. I know I've seen mixed opinions about Magassa, who you signed, and I know you've got the problem with Alvarez or Guido Rodriguez in there, which one who wants to play, and not having that mobile central midfielder like that he maybe would like he had like with Ruben Neves or Yao Martino or Anderson and Dominguez last season. So he probably would want to improve that area. I think the four forwards that would probably predominantly play in Bowen, Paqueta and Somerville, and then Fulkrug or Wilson are more than equipped to score goals in a Nuno system and in a Nuno team. So I don't think you have to worry about going forward. It's maybe just being organised and having that solidity in central midfield, I guess, that he will look probably to improve, I guess.
I remember what I was going to say now. I've seen a few conspiracies going around with the Nottingham Forest fans in the last week about Nuno because we whacked you 3-0, but also because we've signed Magassa, Fernandez, and Nuno wanted Somerville at Nottingham Forest and obviously stayed at West Ham. We came in for Sangari on loan and stuff like that. And I think there's been a few people suggesting that perhaps this move was always on the cards. Have you seen it? And B, are you buying into it?
I've seen it. There was no link to that Somerville thing is like perplexed a lot of our fans, because no one even knew that we was linked to Crescencio Somerville at all. So I don't know where that's come from. The conspiracy is funny. I don't know. I don't really buy that. A football manager's throwing.
Nor do I.
And I think it might just be circumstantial and coincidence, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's all it is, really.
Yeah, I think also in regards to like say Fernandez in particular, probably about 6 clubs in the Premier League were linked to him, right? it's not just it was West Ham or Nottingham Forest. There was Everton and Leeds. There was loads of clubs linked to him. So I think in this day and age, if you're looking at players, clubs, I think there's more. I would suggest there's more. I don't want to say evidence. That's too far. I think it would be easier to suggest that Nottingham Forest assembled a squad for Postecoglou rather than West Ham assembled a squad for Nuno, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see that. The funny thing is, I think people more look into that Nuno came out after the game and said, like, yeah, we weren't very good in the game, like, and we were really lacking. And I was like, and everyone was going, well, the conspiracy is he had a bench this time to use and didn't use it, and like it was bizarre, but very, very bizarre, and people are still seething about that game because. As we spoke before when we did our preview, Gio, like you lot were struggling, and we was like, well, we're rubbing our hands here because we're doing all right. Do you know what I mean? And lo and behold, we get pumped 3-0, and it weren't a 3-0 game until probably the last 15 minutes anyway, because that's when like West Ham just started to dominate and Bowen doing Bowen things as normal.
Bowen doing Bowen things. I like that one. Carl says, what was his interaction with the fans like, if at all?
Yeah, really, really good, really strong. He loves like getting involved with the community. He got involved with a local football team they were all kids with Down syndrome and stuff like that. And he got really into that. He did lots of hospital visits. I think he's always been known, even at Wolves, for being involved with community and stuff. And I think he's a good person. I think he's a good guy. I think he hates press conferences, and I think that's where a lot of people get their assumptions from, that he's maybe a bit moody or whatever. But I just think he's someone that doesn't really like doing them that often, to be honest.
They are a bit repetitive and boring, too. I think I'd get fed up as a manager.
They like literally rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
Like, so boring.
Yeah. They probably did one the day before he got sacked ahead of the Everton game. And he got asked, and he basically said, oh, well, you know what happens if results go badly? Everyone looks at one person, and we know what usually happens. However, if you look at it from a different angle, you might come to a different conclusion. And the next question was just about something completely different. I was like, ask him what he means by, right? He's hinting for you to say, come on, ask me. And it felt like he was almost ready to. I think he knew the way to get sacked, Potter. When you look back now, because I did a video after it saying I think he's asking to get sacked because he kept on saying, we all know what happens. We all know what happens. Yeah. So I think he knew it was coming.
It was the same with Nuno, with some of the stuff he was coming out with. So we obviously signed all them players. Then he complained about more depth, and they got all signed. And then he was still complaining. And it was just like, what are you talking about? You had £200 million spent on your squad. It's miles better than what you could have asked for, and you're still moaning. Like loads of managers in this league would have killed for what we did. So strange.
Asking to get sacked because you didn't sign a Adama Traore is wild. I'll never understand a manager willing to sacrifice his job because they didn't get a Adama Traore. Sebastian says, did he integrate youth players as much as you would have liked him to?
So he kept Zach Abbott in and amongst the first team, and he's someone that's coming through the ranks, but I just don't think he was ready. And I mean, he flung him into he played in the League Cup game against Newcastle and then didn't play after that, and he should have really playing in the FA Cup, and I don't get why he didn't. It was very strange, because then he catapulted him into an FA Cup semi-final out of position at right back against Manchester City.
I remember that.
So yeah, I think he's the only one that could have been integrated from our youth system, because Ryan Yates is already there, and he's already part and parcel of Forest kind of thing. So I think if we weren't having an amazing season like we did last year, I think if it was like mid-table, we might have seen a little bit more of Zach Abbott. But I just thought, because of the circumstances and Marinakis wanting to just get as high up the table as quickly as possible, I just don't think there was room for that experiment, unfortunately.
So is it fair to suggest that integrating players from the academy isn't really part of the club's philosophy today?
Well, it should be, because we've got this really long-standing record, but you look at some of the talent that comes through at other clubs, and I think you've just got to be exceptional now. Look at Arsenal got a 15-year-old kid, and he looks unbelievable. Yeah. I don't remember. I don't even think Brennan Johnson looked as good as that kid coming through. So I think you've just got to be exceptional to get into a Premier League first team from a youth academy now, especially with Forest. Nottingham is not like the biggest area of talent. It's got a lot of it, but it's not a massive area. You're competing with Derby and Leicester. Leicester built an academy on the border of Nottinghamshire and Leicestershire, and Derby's academy has always been far more invested into than Forest. But I know Marinakis wants to invest into it, so maybe it will improve in the future. But yeah, Nuno won't integrate youth players unless like there's a room for it. I think he will. I think he would do. I think he would give an opportunity if there's a player good enough. I know the West Ham have a player called Scales last season, left back. Was he?
Scales, yeah.
Scales, yeah. So he might see that, but I know Juve's a pretty good player as well. Yeah. But Mike, obviously, he's going to go AFCON, isn't he? So maybe there's an opportunity there.
Jake says, do you think under Nuno, Forest would have continued to improve, move up table, and possibly even win a trophy? Or do you think he had reached his ceiling?
Yeah, so this is a really good question and something I reiterated throughout the entire of last season. Nuno's way of playing football in the modern era is not sustainable. It just really isn't, because it doesn't create enough chances. We had Chris Wood, who was scoring above his means last season. I don't know if you saw against Sunderland last week. He had a header which last season he would have buried with his eyes closed. Like the weekend he missed. So when you've got a player in such rich vein of form, that's quite difficult to replicate again for someone that's not normally like that prolific. So I wanted him to improve, but I just think he was too stubborn to change the style of football, and I don't know why. So I think we'd overachieved. I think it would have been good if we'd got mid-table last season, had him this season, and I don't think the fallout would have probably happened. And then maybe look to moving on when we're like trying to bang on that door for a European spot, not quite getting it. So that might have been the time. Personally, I don't think he would have won as a trophy. We might have got far in trophies or in competitions because he's got the experience, but I don't think would have won anything. And I do think he might have reached his ceiling, unfortunately.
The Hammer Boy says, does he have favourites, or is he happy to swap the team as needed? We've half covered it a little bit, but did he have his Nuno teacher pets?
I wouldn't say so. I think the team kind of picked itself last season when everyone was available. He did want to get Nico Dominguez in when he could, but I wouldn't say he's a teacher's pet or anything. I just think Nico Dominguez is a very good footballer, and he's very, very useful in different positions, though I much prefer him in central midfield rather than right midfield or right wing or whatever. But yeah, I think the team picked itself, really.
Billy says, how do you think Nuno contrasts with Moyes in terms of developing the squad for the long term? Moyes had a tendency to focus on a core of 18 or so players and left us with one of the oldest squads in the league as a result of that. Is Nuno likely to do similar?
Tough one, because I think the question almost sounds like Nuno's like responsible for recruitment there.
I think he'll have a big say. There's the infrastructure at West Ham right now. We tried, I like what you've done with Edu, but we tried it without that. I think it's part of a long-term vision at Nottingham Forest, and the intention was always to get someone like Edu in. It feels like that. Please interrupt if I'm wrong, but it feels like that was always part of the long-term plan. Edu's gone in there, and it feels like it is a long-term thing at Nottingham Forest, and he's going to be there for a while, and it's going to get molded. And it feels like there's an identity at Nottingham Forest now, which didn't go hand in hand with how Nuno plays football. We tried that, and that's why Moyes left. But then very quickly, within 7 months after Moyes leaving, the person that we had in place, Tim Steiden, he also left.
Yeah.
So we decided to go from old school manager to the new head coach type thing with someone above him overseeing player recruitment. And then we got rid of him. Then we got rid of Lopetegui and brought in Graham Potter. And now we had the most head coach you can get. And we basically said, can you be like an old school manager? Like, what do you want in terms of recruitment and stuff? And that didn't work. So I wouldn't be surprised. I think Nuno will have a big say in player recruitment. Now, I think it'll be up to the board to do the negotiating. And I think that will be an issue. But I think Nuno will maybe be able to. Yeah, I think he'll be able to influence who we go after quite a bit, actually, going forward. I could be wrong. It's just my prediction. But if that was the case, how do you think he'd go about things like Billy's asking?
I'm not sure, to be honest. That's a difficult question to know, with him only having like a year here, and the recruitment wasn't crazy last season. I would say I think we've got players to fill the squad and try and battle for being a mid-table side rather than from where we did. So
let me attack it slightly differently. You signed, bloody hell, I'm testing myself here with my Nottingham Forest Norwich. I want to say Sal's came in, but
that was
maybe not.
halfway through last season, the season before. So
and then Elliot Anderson,
yeah,
came in, and Milenkovic came in. So were these Nuno players, or how did they come about?
So I believe it's more of a recruitment thing. So we've got like Ross Wilson, George Sirianos, Pedro Ferreira, who was at Benfica, and I think they're more of the brains behind our recruitment. Personally, I did think Nuno might have had a say. Like I don't think he's going to be like, well, I don't want that player, or I do want this player. I think that and be ignored or whatever. I think he's got to have a say because he's the one who's putting the players out on the pitch at the end of the day. He does like a smaller squad, but I think because now you can make up to 5. I think you can expand that squad now. And he did tend to use 3, 4, sometimes 5 subs. It was just depending on the circumstance, I guess. But yeah, he's always liked a small squad. He's always said it at Wolves that he likes a small squad.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's possible now in the modern era. The game is that fast and there's that many of them. It's quite difficult. And I think players are more happy to be rotated a little bit more because they seem to complain about playing so often nowadays. But teams like yourselves who aren't in Europe, I think it's quite good when you do adapt the small squad kind of thing.
Did Mendes have much influence when he was at Forest, or not really?
That was when we was in like the Championship, I think, maybe, but not so much now. I don't think.
I was trying to think of the Portuguese players that were. I know obviously Jota Silva was one of them, but
more Brazilians, if anything, because we've got a network set up that in Brazil. So yeah, loads and loads of Brazilians.
Yeah, you've got a bloody good one. I do like Igor Jesus. I do like him. I think I liked him at the Club World Cup, and then obviously his goals against Real Betis and stuff. I think it's only a matter of time till Chris Wood finds himself on the bench. I think, and you never know if he's out the team by January. Nuno might decide to go try and get his Erling Haaland and bring him to the London Stadium. Lewis says, is there anything about Nuno's management or style of play that you think neutral fans wouldn't know about? Neutral fans here meaning fans that haven't had Nuno as manager.
I think his way of controlling teams without the ball is something that goes amiss quite a lot. People think, oh, Forest are sitting in a low block when Nuno was manager, and that could be considered. But when certain teams got in an area of the pitch, it then got extremely small, and then Forest would win the ball back, and then that's when they spring on the counter and stuff. But yeah, so I think that's probably the one that sticks out in my mind.
One of our subscribers are going to hate you.
Okay.
I once said that we were in control of the game even though we didn't have the ball, and he left an essay about how stupid I was to say that. And then I sent him a link to Jose Mourinho saying something similar, and he never replied. So
because I think there is definitely an element of both, and I understand maybe where that person's coming from in terms of having control means you've got the ball all the time, but if you can force your opponents into an area of the football pitch without it, and then win the ball, and then suddenly you're at the back 4 or you're at a back 2 because the wing backs have gone so far up, then I don't understand how that's not control.
Either do I. We're on the same wavelength, Adam. Kyriakos said, what did Nuno do that you appreciated the most during games, and what did he do that annoyed or frustrated you?
I mean, during games, that's quite difficult. I think like game management was a big one. I think when maybe we're not under the cosh or anything, but when he's like, right, we've got to this point in the game, we're going to shore up shop. We bring Morato on, and we'd go to a back 3 or a back 5, however you want to see it. And to be fair, we actually still created chances, even though we was going into that formation. There was still opportunity on the counter attack to go at teams when we're kind of saying, well, come on, then let's break us down. But it was always a worry because you can only do that so much by giving teams in the Premier League the ball and saying, right, go on then, because teams will punish you eventually. That's just how it sometimes works. And unfortunately, in our games against Burnley and Sunderland, we've not quite sustained that pressure or made enough chances to win those football matches under Ange at the moment. But I don't think we would have won either of them under Nuno, the way he was going about certain stuff. So yeah, go hand in hand. What did he do that annoyed and frustrated me? Sometimes substitutions weren't always the right ones, or trusting in the depth that was given to him, unfortunately, because I think that was the ultimate thing that cost us Champions League football in the end.
Yeah, my worry about what you just said in regards to the positive there is that I think it's easier to go defensive mode, as in 5 at the back, and invite pressure on. I understand why. It goes back to the previous answer you've just given in regards to sort of setting traps a little bit, because you're really sucking the opposition in there and saying, right, come on, step up, even commit another player, come 5-10 yards more. And we've got Alanga, we've got Hudson-Odoi, and we've got even more space to play into now. But I think it's easier for Nottingham Forest to do that when you've got Milenkovic in there, Morata, Murillo, but also you had sort of central midfielders that were quite tall as well, Sangare and Danilo at the time, quite physical players too. But also you had one of the best performing goalkeepers last season in goal too. So if they did break through you, you had a top keeper in goal, so it might get through me as well. And I think you almost came up against that a little bit against Sunderland, because I think WHUFC was outstanding against you, because Matty Hutchinson could have had a couple of goals himself after coming off the bench. So I think you almost got Nuno'd by Sunderland at the weekend.
Yeah, we did probably a little bit.
Yeah. Fo says, how long till Nuno's anti-football tactics really outweighs the results he gets using them?
That honestly depends on the opposition as well. Like, are they going to say, "Oh, it's Nuno, we'll just give him the ball"? But I don't know. That's quite
subjective, isn't it? It depends on the fan, really. Everyone's different.
Yeah, absolutely. And by all accounts, getting a 1-1 draw at the Hill Dicko at Everton's new ground is a good result. I think it just it's going to depend. I think that's an opinion you're going to have to form over time, I guess.
I think the one thing I think might benefit Nuno in regards to this question is what we've just witnessed with Lopetegui and Potter. I think we've seen, I wouldn't call them expansive football. It's not like they were playing, it's not Ange Postecoglou ball, right? There was no Ange ball at West Ham where we're trying to score 3 goals, right? That did not exist. But I think we certainly weren't trying to set up to keep clean sheets and be defensive. We weren't doing that. We were sort of in the middle. We were trying to increase possession, but we weren't increasing chances. So we had to put more of the ball, but arguably we had even less chances than we did when we were playing more defensive football. And I think because we've had that for just over the season now, I think it might just buy Nuno a little bit of time in regards to that football, because, and I can only speak for myself, I've sort of given up with better football at West Ham while this border here. I think that years taught me a bit of a lesson, really. But everyone's different. Hammer of the Oz says, would you put your last fiver on Nuno keeping us up, and why?
I think so, because of what I've seen at Forest, where he kept us up in difficult circumstances. Although, let's face it, the league is already it's much stronger than it has been for the last 2 seasons. Sunderland and Leeds and even Burnley, to an extent, are performing much better, and their tactics are way better than they have been in the last few seasons, where people are trying to play out from the back with players who are like League One, really. Let's face it, Ipswich had like League One centre halves last season. So I think he will, because he will make you more sound at the back, more solid. You've got players that can hurt teams, as we saw at the City ground. Out of nothing, Jarrod Bowen scores a goal, which I thought he was a P-roller at the time, but it's just gone right in the corner. I just think you've got too much quality and experience, really. It's just whether West Ham fans are willing to give that time and be patient with it, because I know lots of West Ham fans like to speak about the West Ham way. I haven't got a clue what that is. Some people say about the Forest way. I haven't even got a clue what that is, really, to be honest. And I've been following them for donkeys. So yeah, I haven't got a clue what when people say about the way of whatever football club they are. It's the only teams that I've got away are like the elite, really, because they've been playing it for that long and they've been winning stuff for that long. So yeah, I think he'll keep you up, personally.
Right, final two questions. While all the questions so far have been in random order, I've kept the last 3 or 4 in this order specifically. Bo says, how much will Forest miss Nuno?
That depends on where we are in the league, I guess. If we're languishing in the relegation fight, then we'll miss him a lot, because it'd have been like, well, why didn't you just, I don't know, I was in a compromise or whatever. But I'm someone that likes to see attacking football and likes to see players move and pass in and that sort
Sounds
of
like the
stuff.
Forest way to me.
It's not the Forest way; it's just my way. Yeah, I just like to see good football. So personally, I think I loved it because it was winning, but deep in my heart, I wanted to see more of an expansive way of playing. The way Ange's playing is how I would like to see his play. I just want us to actually win football matches with it.
And lastly, Billy says, would you take Nuno back over Ange? I think you've just given your answer away there, but
yes and no. I think because I didn't really want Ange to begin with anyway. Like a lot of fans didn't want Ange to begin with, but we've got him now, so we've got to. But I think if I would have liked to keep Nuno because he deserved the chance, and I think that's why it's a little bit bittersweet that he's gone, and then in the circumstances he's gone, because like the media just perceived, like Marinakis has like lost his head or whatever, and it wasn't even the case. Marinakis was trying to be the peacemaker in all of it between him and Edu for all of our accounts. So I just think he burnt bridges, Nuno, unfortunately, and yeah, bizarre, very very bizarre. But I'd have liked to have seen what he would have done with this team and with his head screwed on, to be honest.
Well, Adam, thank you so much. Before I let you love us and leave us, is there anything you'd like to add in regards to Nuno? Is there anything you think our subscribers have missed when firing questions at you?
No, I don't think so. I think just maybe take his press conferences with a pinch of salt. They're all very boring and mundane, as we've said, Gio. They're very like boring and rinse and repeat. So I wouldn't really look into that too much. He is a good guy once you get on with him, and his community, like in the communities, you can see he's a really good person. But it might be a little bit of a slog before it gets better, you know, with how he goes. But he's organised, but he might use the excuse that he's not had a pre-season, unfortunately, if it's not going too well.
Well, Adam, thank you so much. If you guys at home have enjoyed the video, well, do you know what? If you haven't enjoyed the video, you can blame yourselves, because the questions were provided by you lot. But if you have enjoyed it, it would be great if you could drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up, subscribing to Hammers Chat. All the links to Adam's YouTube channel, social media will be in the description below as well. If you fancy keeping up with what's going on over at Nottingham Forest, or just popping over to say thank you very much for appearing on Hammers Chat. We appreciate it. That would also be kind. But Adam, thank you. And I'll catch up with you later on in the season when hopefully Nuno can get a little bit of revenge on Nottingham Forest at the London Stadium. We'll catch you in a bit.